Hey everyone, how's it going? Juan Dhas here, and welcome back to this week's lesson video. That's a little delayed, but lately it seems that a floating schedule seems to work best given all the stuff that happens in this building from day to day. So don't worry, I'm still going to be doing lesson video at least every week, and if I can, do an extra video for you all. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about comping. I haven't done like a guitar specific video in a while, so I figured, why not do something? And one of the topics that seems to plague a lot of my students the most, or many students, and I remember asking teachers this as well when I was at music school, was how do I know what to use? And I wanted to specifically talk about textures. Like, what kind of voicings should I use? What kind of structures, or how should I play them? And a lot of the answers seem to be kind of that comes from experience, and there are certain things that you have to think about depending on who you're comping with or comping for. So I figured, why not? Let's just make this a little video, and I'm going to give you guys 3 points to think about as you're comping. So the first, they're going to be organized quite simply, and essentially what it is, it's how big your voicing is. So I want you to think on axes specifically. Voicing size, how big or how small the voicing is. Density, how sparse, as in, for example, this would be enough to imply E flat major 7, but then I can make that voicing a little more dense, a little more colorful. There are more notes involved. And then lastly is the actual texture. How are you playing, or how are you accompanying the setting? So let's start with voicing size. Now the reason I asked to think on axes is because this allows you to kind of pivot as quickly as you need to. So this is important because you're going to be playing in different contexts, and the way you comp for a singer, or maybe one wind instrument, or one soloist, just as in a duo, is going to be very different to, let's say, how you would comp in a quartet, a quintet, a large ensemble band, or a big band. All of them are going to have very different contexts. And usually the general rule of thumb, this is again general, you make the choices as you see fit, is the bigger the ensemble, the smaller the voicings are going to get, and the less busy. So for example, with voicing size, maybe when I'm playing, don't know if you knew the tune, I was playing I Hear a Rhapsody. If I were to play this tune with a singer, let's say, take it a really easy tempo, I would pick very big voicings or very low-end heavy voicings that have a large spread to them. That's why I use a lot of spread triads. So for example, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Then to the B. And I'm punctuating here and there because I'm trying to fill up the space. Remember, at the end of the day, when you're in a duo setting or a very small, intimate setting, you take on more responsibilities as a comper. Now let's say if I were to do the same thing in a large ensemble setting, right? Or maybe let's say there's a piano player involved. This is where guitar players tend to have issues. And I'm going to be very blunt with guitar players here. No matter how big your voicings are, how dense they are, how colorful they are, you're never going to be able to match the harmonic range of a pianist. So rather than try to replace the pianist, just play your role. Unless, you know, the band leader says, hey, I want you to do a big voicing every now and then to kind of flesh out the sound a little more. But 9 times out of 10, you and the pianist are not going to be on the same wavelength. You're going to think about harmony differently. Over time, those relationships change, and as you communicate and learn more about the pianists you're playing with, and you learn more about their intricacies, that's how you can make better decisions and figure out where to squeeze yourself in there. So either play sparse or lay out. So then I would pick very small voicings, right? Very little ones, even if I'm playing clusters, let's say for the same tune, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that again, maybe a little more solid. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. Right, you see I'm picking very little voicings, or even if I play tiny ones like this one, there's not as much of a spread or very close voice chords. I'm taking the roots out and I'm just playing very small voicings, 2 or 3 note voicings at times. So this would be an example of variation in size, right? How big or how small your chord voicing is going to really shape how you play with other ensembles. Granted, use your discretion. If the band you're playing with or the group you're playing with is calling you for a very particular reason, well, they probably want you to play a very particular way. And in my case, a lot of what I get called for is trio work, because I have big voicings that fill out spaces. So it lends itself to that. Even when I play with piano players, I'm called because I can kind of judge spaces, but also, you know, I can lay out if I need to. So now let's get on to sparsity, or density rather. How dense are your voicings, right? You can think along this axis to maybe bring a little more interest. So, for example, maybe if I'm playing this tune, this would be a very dense voicing. But I can also on the same token play that, and they'll have 2 different functions and 2 different sounds. It's important to understand what sound or what effect you get from playing a voicing a specific way. So the difference is, well, this is a 5-note voicing, and we've got a very big spread, right? But we've also got a bunch of notes in there, and how many clusters and little intricacies that each voicing has, whereas this is quite literally only 2 notes. There's not a whole lot of density going on, but it's enough to imply the harmony. So let's say maybe I'm playing for a bassist, and I still want to give him some foundation, but, you know, leave him plenty of space. I can play very sparsely. Right? Minimal 2 or 3 note voicings, but not a lot of harmonic information, right? Where would I go from here? Right? And then and you see you're starting to create variation, because now I started to make the voicings a little more dense. Right? So that's another way you can tweak your voicings and tweak how you comp. Now on the same token, I can do the same thing, flip it around a little, and make the voicings a lot more. That's a very different sound. And the reason I'm going through this is so you know what your options are when you're playing. So if you want to create more color, more contrast, more shimmer, if you would, that's where some of your dense voicings, even some of your clusters, basically how close the notes are together or how heavy the chords are, so to speak. Same token, let's try a different variation. Do, vo, do, re, do, re, de, vo, 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 da, da, yo, do, re. Where am I going with this? Let's try do, do, re, vo, do, re. And how you reharmonize, that's another aspect of density. So be mindful of this when you're playing with others, or when you're playing on recordings or different sessions. So now we get to the last point, and that's texture. And this is basically a very open-ended thing. How are we playing these voicings? For example, am I taking a very sparse texture and just kind of punctuating things here and there, which is a very jazz approach, right? So for example, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. And so on and so forth. You see all of it's very light, very sparse. It's kind of like a left-hand approach on the piano. You're not letting too many chords ring out. Or am I letting chords ring out? For example, right? It's a very different sound. It's very sparse, very mellow. So understanding this helps you figure that out. Or are you, now this is with block chords, so what happens if you break the chord apart? Sometimes I might comp in that sort of world or that sort of context. And kind of try interact with the soloist on a little more of an intimate manner. It kind of has a nice contrast. It's almost like two-line counterpoint, basically. But again, you need to be very aware of what the soloist is doing, and you need to kind of stay out of their way a little bit and give them room to breathe. After all, they are the soloist, not you. So be mindful of that. If you take that approach, it's best to go very light. 2, 2, 3, 4. Right? Plenty of room for a soloist to play around there. I'm not really getting in their way. Or you can take a single note approach, you know, have little filler lines. How do you break chords apart? For example, I love this kind of texture. It's basically how do you play? And again, bear in mind your surroundings. For example, if I'm playing with a vocalist or just like a sax or a trumpeter, I'm usually taking into account, okay, I have a lot more room. I've got to still give them the time, but right? Or I can take that approach and just go very sparse and give them, you know, a little more rhythmic information. And you'll have to figure out how that affects your chord playing, because the way you play rhythmically is going to really alter how big your voicings can be and maybe force you to take smaller voicings just so you can keep the time better. So you have to be aware of these. So I hope this lesson was really helpful for all of you. Again, sorry it was a little late, but if you do enjoy the lessons and what I've been posting on here, please do hit the subscribe button, do give this video a like, share it with anyone who might find it useful. Also, if you want to dive in deeper, I do extended lessons on Patreon, so I'm about to jump over there right now and, you know, do something for that crowd over there. So if you'd like to join in and maybe see how I dive a little deeper and how you can maybe practice this, come on over. On that note, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.